That's fine by me. Okay.
My headset. How about now? Can you guys hear me?
Any luck?
Anyone? It's
Yes?
saying that there's
No?
sound coming from it.
No? Anything?
Like
Nothing?
Yay! I'm so sorry, guys. It said that there was sound and it lied. Oh, I'm really good at this. This is why I don't host things. So,
Well, not with that attitude.
yeah, but we'll try again and we'll crop it properly. So we'll just rewind everything and do it one more time. So, hello, welcome to the Animates, the show for animators by animators. Today we're interviewing my friend Christie Moore, who is a veteran of 10 years in the industry from Toronto. Christie is, yeah, a really strong animator and she's a hilarious team member. And I have so many good stories about working with her because she was one of those like really good people to have on a team. And anyone who gets to work with Christie ever is like super privileged because she is a blast. So, hi, Christy. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, I'm an industry veteran of 10 years. Uh, okay, yeah, I've worked on a variety of projects since I've started working. So, feature films, straight to DVD films, short films, TV work, web shorts, webisodes, which are a different thing. It's like an episodic web shorts sort of thing. I taught animation for a few years while I was in Toronto. I had to give it up when I moved out here to Montreal. Uh, and I miss it, but it's also nice to be able to just focus on one thing at a time instead of being at work and also thinking about all the emails I still need to answer. Um, yeah, I think that's the half the shortened version of what I had said before,
Yeah.
really.
So, yeah, you mentioned before, I was just asking you to name drop a couple of your favorite productions. Um,
Right. So the most recent one that is out was actually one of my favorites that I really enjoyed working on, Next Gen, which is a movie that is on Netflix about a
you all
girl and a
should watch
robot.
it. It's really good.
And it was a really great experience because I was working with some fantastically talented people, and the culture of the studio was really strong, and it was a really original project compared to a lot of stuff that's out there. So it was really something special,
Hmm.
which
Yeah, it was
yeah,
definitely like
I'm
way more mature than I anticipated it being. Um, it,
yeah, we were animating it and making jokes about what the rating was going to be because
yeah, there was some like pretty heavy stuff in there. I
there
was
definitely was.
But yeah, definitely you guys should super watch it. It was definitely one of my favorite animated features from this past year, and I feel like that's saying a lot this year. So
Yeah, there's been a good amount of stuff out, so high praise.
yeah, and you mentioned another one that you said wasn't as well received, but
Well,
just
I'm
as
not going to say it wasn't as well received.
well.
I
I think
will say
well
that it
known, I
didn't
should say.
pick up the same viewership. And it was Barbie Life in the Dream House. And the reason that I liked working on that show so much was that the clients were really on board with whatever we wanted to do with it.
Hmm.
So the script would have a joke in it, and we would turn it into a bunch of visual gags to just up the ante and make it stupider and more ridiculous. And the clients would go, "Oh, yeah, I love this. Keep going." So we weren't reined in at all, and I think it shows in the final project or the final product
Hmm.
just how much fun we had with it.
Yeah.
So I won't say it's a project that we didn't exactly have the time to make it beautiful animation, but as far as enjoyable projects, that's definitely up there in the list.
Honestly, watching the production, like you can tell that your team had a lot of fun working on it regardless. So I
Yeah.
honestly, if you guys haven't seen it yet, like go give it a look. It is genuinely hilarious and very self-aware, and just unlike any other Barbie production I've ever seen or worked on, like everything else I've been on has been much more like dialed back and more
Yeah.
just like I don't know. It's more on
Every other
rails, and this
Barbie
one's
project. So I've been on a couple of different Barbie projects, and
Mhm.
every other one that I've been on has been very, this is a Barbie film.
Yeah.
It's for kids.
Yeah.
Very soft, very friendly in
Mhm.
general. And this one was just, like you said, very self-aware. And because they were modeled and put into actual doll space, there were all these gags about like putting up a sticker with a control panel to the wall and then immediately using the control panel because now it works. Now it's part of the dollhouse. And it's just really uh, self-aware jokes of we know what we're selling essentially, and they just leaned into it in a really great way.
Yeah. Sweet. Thank you for those. So yeah, other quick one, like the production that I worked on with Christie primarily was Troll Hunters, and so that
I
was
don't know
that
how
was
I forgot Troll Hunters.
I don't know. It was a lot, and I think a lot of us shut out ARC Productions later years. To be fair,
That could be a thing,
it was
yes.
a lot. I basically lived with you in a basement for like 8 months of my life.
Yeah,
It was great.
yeah,
Um,
it was something.
yeah. But no, like I think that says something about like just how good Next Gen was though, like in regards to a crazy cool production. And that one was also animated in Blender for those of you who don't know. And you guys should
Yeah,
really give it a watch because it's gorgeous and done with publicly like it's
yeah.
public
It's
software.
free
It's
software. Like we
completely
had a
free.
lot of in-house plugins to make it more robust, but that it's all
Mhm.
accessible stuff. And I'm pretty sure that the lighting and comp team are actual wizards.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely. That no,
I
that
I
movie's
don't know how they did
gorgeous.
that.
I'm sorry, I'm fangirling, but it was a good movie. I cried at the end because I was like so happy for you guys, but also so fucking jealous.
And I feed off your tears.
We got a comment in chat, Christy, that says it's from Clyde W. Jones, who says, "I know this
Hi, Clyde.
person. Don't be fooled. You're actually interviewing two raccoons in a disguise."
I do know Clyde, and he is incorrect. I am 4 raccoons in a trench coat, Clyde. We've talked about this.
So yes, we'll get. I really, if I can later on, possibly get some stories and anecdotes from you because Christy is also a great storyteller, which is another reason I brought her on. 'Cause, yeah, she's great at recounting tales, and I appreciate it. So I guess yeah, what first got you started in animation, Christy?
I kind of fell into it by accident. So I had done a lot of art through when I was a kid and into high school, and in the last year of high school, kind of on a whim, I decided I'd do one of the communications technology courses because they're there, I guess. And my 2 choices for that were either web design, which I knew something about already, and I figured, oh, this is a good way to get a decent mark, and that's fine. I can just keep coasting through there.
Mhm.
And the other one was 3D animation.
Mhm.
So I kind of went, I'll do the 3D animation. Maybe it'll be kind of cool. And as soon as I started learning, it felt like I would sit down in front of the computer and then all of a sudden the class would be over because the time had just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting there going like, no, I don't want to go to English class. I want to stay here the whole day and do this. Um, so considering that that was in my last year of high school, that was pretty good timing for me to go, oh, now that I'm doing all these college applications,
Yeah.
let's tailor in that direction.
That's
And
really
I've never looked back.
yeah. What out of sorry, what programs were you messing around with? Was it Flash or Maya or
Oh God, it was Cinema 4D.
oh man, that's yeah. I guess that's before my
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
It it was whatever our high school could get their mitts on for
Oh yeah.
as cheap as
Oh
possible.
yeah.
I am certain that if that course is still being taught, they are absolutely using Blender because that's free.
I mean, it's also getting way better now, so I can't really argue. Like, if that's a useful tool for them to learn from, and it's well free,
Yeah.
at least it's there. But it sounds like you also had like a solid. It sounds like you had an easy way to start learning the animation. At least when I went to high school, the teacher didn't really know anything in the communications course. So I
Well,
didn't really get to touch anything Maya until university. So it's really cool that you got to.
yeah, the teacher in that case, I don't think he knew anything about animation,
Yeah.
but he knew the software. And I've always been fairly tech savvy, all things considered. So point me at a program, teach me a few things, and I will just take off running.
Sweet.
And that's pretty much what I did. So
That's really
our
cool.
yeah, our end of semester project essentially was a short film. And by short film, he means like 30 seconds because we're high schoolers and we're idiots. And he was saying, oh, just download some free geometry, like you can find it on these websites. And I kind of went, no, I'm going to do it myself. And I did, and it wasn't good at all. It was awful, and I'm pretty sure I didn't end up finishing it. But I think that was one of the earliest times that I voluntarily took on more than was necessary, just because I was so wrapped up in what I could possibly do, which was great.
That's really cool. Next question. Were your family creative people?
Oh, yes. Uh,
So they were,
so
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
so my grandpa on my mom's side was a painter, and that was his career. He would take them on road trips up and down Canada and just paint landscapes. Um, so I actually, not in this room, but I actually have one of his paintings in my apartment. Um, and similarly, my mom has done a lot of photography. My dad has done a lot of photography.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has also done quite a bit of painting
Mm-hmm.
in oils and watercolor and acrylic, and pretty much anything that she feels like she can dabble in, she will dabble in. And I'm not even going to talk about my sister because she is stupidly talented and it makes me mad.
Is she also an animator or is
Sibling
she an artist?
rivalry. Uh, she does art as a hobby, and it's much better than it should be. I have banned her from animation because I want something to be good at. Stay off of my territory.
Okay.
And I know she would take over because that's what she is. So, no, that's mine. You stay back.
So I take it that when you decided you wanted to go to school for animation, your parents were like super supportive of it and were like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They took it great. And I think for a little while, when I was in college, my mom was doing teaching. So she didn't have a lot of time for the artistic stuff that she's doing now. And I think for a while, she was like living vicariously through me of like, oh, you need more art supplies? Let's go to the art store and I'll get you whatever you need. I'm like,
Oh, that's
thank you, Mom.
your mom sounds amazing.
She is a delight.
Oh. Are there, would you say that you see some of those qualities that your parents have now, like that help you get where you are now, or do
Uh,
you think, I don't know if I
in
worded that question properly.
Yeah, try again.
Okay, so I guess, were there any lessons that your parents taught you that helped, like that like experience they had that you ended up um, learning from them, or was there anything of
Uh,
value that you really took from them as creative people?
so my parents have always been very, I'm going to say, hands off supportive, where they would pretty much let us do what interested us.
Mhm.
So the best possible example I can give for this is when I was in high school, um, I went to my mother and I said, I can't make up my mind. I've been thinking about this for a while. Should I take biology or should I take musical theater? Now, any parent out there would probably say, take biology because science is important. And when are you ever going to use musical theater? My mother said, do whatever you like. Thanks, Mom. I came to you for an opinion. So they've always been very much just letting us explore on our own. And while that definitely got frustrating at some points, I think that was really crucial in kind of, again, letting me discover animation um, without worrying so much about what they might expect out of me.
Hmm.
I can easily see in another world that same branching path between web design and 3D animation going, well, they know that I do this, so I'll do this. And then I just never would have found this industry.
Yeah, man, like kind of just like the stars aligned a little bit, huh?
Oh, I have gotten ridiculously lucky
Yeah.
in my career. And it's important to kind of note that luck is all well and good, but if you're not in a position to take advantage of that luck when it comes up, then you might as well not have it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I got really lucky in a lot of ways, but I was also in positions at different points where I was able to make the most of that luck. And it got me this far. Haven't been fired yet.
Yeah. Man, no, I just keep thinking of your pranks, and we'll get to those later. Um,
Later.
yeah. So you did mention you went to college. You didn't go to university, correct?
Right.
You went to
I went directly. I made a brave stab at applying to the animation programs at both Sheridan and Seneca, which are in Toronto, and was very politely told by both schools, you should go through art fundamentals first. And so I went, oh, okay, fine, I'll go through art fundamentals. And I definitely needed it. Looking at my portfolio before and after are, well, it's cringeworthy.
Oh
What I thought was good beforehand, I looked back on and went, oh, they were right to send me to art fundamentals. And then
no.
immediately after that, I applied for animation at Seneca, got
Mhm.
accepted, and that was that.
You had some really cool teachers at Seneca too, from what I
Yeah,
recall.
definitely.
Like, yeah, I've met a couple of the Seneca teachers. They are lovely people. I'm
They're good people.
hmm Yeah. So if anyone's thinking of going to, I don't know if you're in school in Toronto, like Seneca grads are lovely people, and I've worked with a bunch of them,
And
and
bonus point, like I can say that's the school where I was teaching.
hmm
And so I can confirm they have a really solid curriculum, at least for animation, because that's what I was teaching. And I don't know about the other things. That's for other professors to know.
yeah.
But the animation is solid. They make a point of hiring industry professionals.
Hmm.
So you're not going to be taught by someone who learned it out of a book and just knows that much. They're people who are doing this as a career, and it
Yeah.
shows.
So were there any, I guess you clearly learned a lot while you were at Seneca. Were there any really big struggles that you had while you were there that you
I mean, the entire course was a struggle.
fair?
It's a really heavy course. There's a lot of work and a lot of late nights, and you really have to learn when to say that things are good enough because you just don't have time anymore. And I kind of joke that animation, that the course nearly, or it half killed me, but I'm also kind of half joking about that because it was extremely difficult, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that in its own way was kind of a benefit, which is a really roundabout way to say because it made me really focus on the things that I was looking forward to doing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
you know, there was
it was like a rounded course then. It wasn't strictly animation. It was like there was
right, yeah.
modeling and
So we
everything.
had yeah, well, it was a 3-year program,
Hmm.
and the first 2 were traditional, so pencil and paper.
Okay.
And then the 3rd year was 3D. So in this case, it was animation, storyboard, layout, life drawing,
Yeah.
like just across the pipeline, essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and with that, you really had to budget your time and think, well, I could spend a lot of time doing this storyboard thing, which me, myself personally, I don't like doing storyboarding. I just
Mhm.
get frustrated with it. So it was like, well, I don't want to do this. I want to animate. And just that realization alone did a lot for making me realize what I did or did not want. It was, where do I want to put my energy? Where do I want to put my attention? Because there's a limited
Yeah.
resource of both.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's really interesting. It's interesting to hear how different schools are structured because mine was like
Yeah.
only 3D, and there was very few art fundamentals. So it's like definitely research your schools, like students who are in here listening.
Yeah.
See what the
And
courses are, especially if you already have kind of an idea of what you want to do. Like, because Christy definitely did. I was a
yeah,
little more broad ranged, and I.
I'll add to that research thing by saying actually go into the schools and check them out there, because when I was submitting my portfolio the first time around and didn't go well,
Mm,
but they actually took me on a tour through the animation wing and had me talking to some of the students, and they, I mean, they're not there to bring in more people. They're not
mm,
there to advertise. So you're really able to get an honest opinion of how things are.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that's invaluable for kind of understanding the culture of the school and if that's something that's going to be compatible with you.
Sorry, he's being noisy. I hope you're not hearing him. No, that's yeah, no, that's very good advice. Definitely research, and yeah, the other thing is like definitely go somewhere where you feel like you're going to be challenged to an extent. Like don't go somewhere because you know you'll be the best artist. Go somewhere where you'll want to be the worst artist and learn a lot.
Well, I'll kind of, I agree and disagree, because what I would say instead is go somewhere that you know you have the potential to grow.
There you, that's better. That's better wording.
So, for example, I'm not gonna name names. I did visit a couple of different schools, and at that point, um, the reason I ended up going to Seneca for art fundamentals was that when I went to the other school, everything seemed extremely competitive,
Yeah.
and like people would kind of headbutt each other and be like, "No, this is my work. You can't look at it."
Hmm.
And that felt um, I felt like if I went there, it would be socially isolating in a way that wouldn't help me.
Yeah.
And when I went to Seneca and I did talk to the students who were there, they were two separate people told me, "We're like a family."
Oh.
And the second guy looked at the first and went, "I just said that. Come on." Which, I mean, like, you don't do that if you're not
Yeah.
friendly with people.
Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
really made it seem like a welcoming environment.
Hmm.
And I knew that having that peer interaction would be more helpful for me than the competitive one.
Absolutely. Especially because like the industry is a very like borderline familial environment.
Yeah,
You need that teamwork and support in order to make a production good. Yeah.
yeah,
Um
definitely.
yeah. So to kind of go on to the next question is a little different. What is your do you have a good way to describe your general approach for animating something? I don't like um I don't
Uh,
do you, I don't know how big are
Usually,
you on reference? How
yeah.
do you have a
Uh, the reference thing is something that in an ideal situation, I will do it.
mhm,
I have been in a lot of non-ideal situations where it's just not possible to do. And I find that you can tell when reference has been done or when it hasn't, you can tell because there's this lovely sort of nuance that if you're looking at live action reference, you can go, "Oh, I did a little thing with my hand there that I wasn't thinking about, but it adds a lot to this particular acting piece." And if you're just sitting in front of a computer putting out poses, you're never going to think of little things like that. So, definitely, I will try to shoot reference as often as possible. Um, I'll try to get that in front of whoever my lead animator is to kind of say, here are my thoughts about my acting choices, even if it's not perfect. Like, I might say, I like these acting choices, but I'm not happy with this last gesture. I want to change it to XYZ. That still gives them a good place to say, yes, that'll work, or yes, but watch out for these pitfalls, or I don't think that's working. Let's
Mhm.
do another pass at it.
Mhm.
And doing that reference is so much faster than going through a blocking pass and then having your supervisor say, no, it's not working. We need to try a different approach.
Mhm.
Um, so reference is definitely helpful for a huge multitude of reasons.
Mhm.
Can't I can't emphasize enough how important that stuff is to getting a good natural feeling in your animation as well as generally speeding things up.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
reference. Were there any leads that really got you onto reference, or was that something you learned at school? Or
that's not something I learned in school, which is unfortunate. Our third year teacher did an admirable job of trying to get us started,
Mhm.
but because we had already done 2 years without it even being mentioned, at that point you're self-conscious about it
Oh yeah.
and you're worried, and any results that you have are just kind of crunchy and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
so it wasn't really helpful in school. And actually that's one of the things that when I was teaching first years, so I would get them started on reference as soon as humanly possible
That's really good.
because the sooner they start, the more comfortable they're going to be,
Mhm.
and the more that's going to help them down the line.
Yeah. 'Cause- yeah, I
Um,
can definitely agree with that.
as far as which leads kind of got me into that, it was a rough sort of road of sometimes doing it and sometimes not doing it. And part of that was because um, so when I came out of school, I immediately started working at Stars Animation, which then became Arc Productions. And I worked there pretty much straight up until that ship sank. Um, and one of the main obstacles for filming reference was that they didn't really have a reference room. What they had was a curtained off area
Oh.
in an open concept studio. So now you're worried about things like playing the dialogue too loud or making too much noise when you're moving around, or like someone I know ended up hooking up headphones with like two USB extenders so that he could play the audio while
Oh.
still being far enough from the camera. And it wasn't a great setup. And because of that kind of self-consciousness, um, it it almost discouraged using reference. And by the time that I started working on Troll Hunters, in fact, we did manage to carve out a reference room, which was
We
actually a boiler
Yeah,
room,
the
if you
boiler room. I
remember,
remember the boiler room.
which was, and that's sad because that was the best reference room I'd ever had. It
Oh,
was
one
a
second.
boiler
We're
room.
getting a little bit of connection issue. One sec.
Oh dear.
Here, talk again. Okay.
This is my talking
Okay,
voice.
okay, it sounds better. Sorry, it was just robotic on my end. But yes, no, the
Oh,
boiler
okay.
room, mind you, yeah, the boiler room was it and still is the best reference room I think I've ever had. You are absolutely right.
Luckily, luckily, the Real FX is actual reference room with
I'm so
actual
jealous.
crash mats and actual mirrors on the walls, and I'm I'm so ready.
I'm so jealous.
it, it's been so long.
I'm so jealous.
Um, so back to the boiler room. Um, so it was a combination of boiler room where you actually had a door you could close, and because it was a boiler room, it was meant to not let out all the clanks and bangs, so it was mildly soundproofed,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. And that's when I started working a lot more with Mike Chafe, who
Yes.
has done some fantastic animation, and I've kind of lost track of him, but I think
He's
he's
at
at
DreamWorks.
DreamWorks now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For reference, Mike Chafe won an Annie and an Emmy for Troll Hunters, and like he was the man who taught me reference to. Absolutely, 100%.
yeah, and that was because he was like that was his first step, no matter what. I remember animating part of a shot and then having him look at it, and he goes, "You didn't film reference for this, did you?" And I went, "Well, no, it's just a guy going up some stairs." And he goes, "Let's go film some reference." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, where?" And he's like, "Well, there's a stairwell over there. We'll just do it there." I'm going, "Oh, okay.
This
Let's
is so on brand for
film
Mike.
some reference." And we did, and undeniably the result was much better. And and from that point on, it just became part of the workflow of film the reference, show the reference, and then work from that point forward. And that was also really helpful because Mike would be in the room with you. So he would do a couple of acting bits, and then you would do a couple of acting bits, and you'd kind of bounce off of each other a little bit.
We
And
ended
that
up,
was really helpful
yeah.
because I have a tendency to get stuck in my own head and then repeat the same thing over and over and go, well, this isn't helping because I just did the same thing 5 times in a row. I'm not generating new ideas anymore.
Yeah. Mike was great for that. And it was if you went to do reference, you were in the reference room for an hour, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah. I remember near the end of the production trying to do things in a half hour and then going, well, you can get started on the first half of the shot and we'll just book the reference room sometime later to get the other half because it was an extensive process.
Now, from what I recall, I remembered hearing a story about you doing reference for a fall for Troll Hunters.
Yes. So the shot in this particular case was that Jim, the main character, and Toby, his best friend, were sneaking into a museum through an open window. So Jim goes through the window, and that's fine because he's essentially a bunch of toothpicks stapled together. And Toby, who is more or less a beach ball with limbs, gets stuck in the window. And so the shot was that Jim grabbed onto Toby's arms and pulled backwards, and they both come tumbling through the window to a stop. So we had to film some reference. And we go into the reference room, and we have memory might fail me, but I want to say we had a yoga mat for padding. Like
I don't
something,
recall actually. We had something very
something
thin.
it was very insubstantial to the point where it might be good for uh you know, helping to cushion,
Yeah.
but it was not a cushion.
Yeah. Almost like an
So
exercise mat.
yeah, yeah.
I think
So Mike took the incentive on this one on trying to film this reference of Jim falling backwards. But I'm filming this and I'm watching him going, no, this isn't working because it looks like you're like trying to catch yourself with falling. Whereas in this case, he's going to hit the ground really hard. So let's try something else. Um, you stand there, take my hands, I'm going to lean backwards, and you just drop me. And he's going, are you sure? Like, I don't want you to get hurt. You're like, don't get hurt doing this. And I'm going, no, 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 it's absolutely fine. I did figure skating for 7 years. I know how to fall without hurting myself, which I do. And it was fine. So he's really nervous and he's going, are you ready? And I'm like, you can't tell me when you're going to drop me because then I'm going to try to catch myself. You have to just drop me. And he drops me and I tumble to the ground and I get back up and I say, okay, let's try it again. So we do that a couple of times. And between every single take, he's going, like, are you sure you're okay? You're good, really? And I'm going, yes, 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 I'm absolutely fine, no problem. And there was no problem. It was great. Unfortunately, every time that I hit the ground, I would get up too quickly. So I wasn't seeing the overlapping motion of how my head was really settling into the ground or how my arms were settling into the ground. And I really needed that. And Mike was super busy, so I got one of my other friends and I said, hey, I need 5 minutes of your time. I just need you to drop me a bunch. And she goes, okay. And that was it. We we go in and we do the exact same thing. She drops me a bunch, and that's fine, all good. I say thank you. She goes on her way, and the file's corrupted. So I'm like, okay, forget it. I'll just do it myself. So I now know how to throw myself at the ground without making it look like I'm trying to cushion myself at all. And this worked. I got the reference that I needed. However, I also pulled a muscle in my shoulder fairly badly. And I mentioned this to a coworker, and I said, if Mike asks how I hurt myself, I'm telling him I got hit by a car. He cannot know that I hurt myself doing reference because he's going to feel terrible. And I don't know how, but he found out and he felt terrible. And it wasn't until later that I found out that he had actually given himself a concussion doing reference once.
Oh no.
So that's where his big concern was. And then I go and pull a muscle in my shoulder because I'm a dummy who doesn't know how to transfer a file correctly. And I was dead serious. I was like, if he asks, I got hit by a car on my way to work, I'm fine, but my shoulder's a little sore.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be the plan. Yeah.
I really think that might have been my fault.
Which?
I think that me telling Mike.
Oh, it was you! You did this to me!
No one told me to tell the lie about you getting hit by a car. They're just like, yeah, Christie hurt herself in reference. So,
now I have the whole story.
He looked
That's
horrified.
it. Now I know.
He looked absolutely horrified. You didn't tell me. I wasn't in the loop. That's your fault.
So, a lesson to everybody out there, if you're going to lie about something, make sure everybody's on board.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So yeah. So I guess yeah, so Mike is an example of a peer that you look up to. Oh, actually, here's a question. What do you think sets you apart from your peers at work, if anything?
Now this might go a little bit off the rails because, to be perfectly honest, and I think this is one of those things that artists aren't good at seeing their own work for what it is. And in that sort of mindset, I don't really see anything that sets me apart from other animators as far as animation goes, because the one thing that I've noticed consistently is that we almost universally have imposter syndrome, where we look at our own stuff and go, oh, I don't like it. It isn't good. Oh, this person's stuff is so much better. I need to learn from that. Like I'm going to get fired if I don't get good enough at things. And the only reason for that is because you literally spend all day looking for the things that's wrong with your animation. Like that's the job. That's how you get better. But it also means that you're looking at other people's work from a completely blank slate where you're not looking for those problems. You're just enjoying it for what it is. So to kind of backtrack a little bit, in that same regard, I don't really see anything in my animation that sets me apart. Other people might see it differently, but what sets me apart in the workplace is that I am not exactly a professional human being. And you did mention this briefly before, but while we were on Troll Hunters and a little while after that, I maintained my sanity via pranking. And this came in a lot of forms. Psychological warfare via ketchup packets may have been one of them. I definitely covered a coworker's desk in googly eyes and then proceeded to crawl. Yeah, same coworker, and then proceeded to crawl under the desk to put googly eyes on his shoes as he was wearing them.
She successfully did it.
I successfully did it. It took a couple minutes because every time I would reach forward with a googly eye, he'd shift his foot and I'd go, yeah, barely breathe. That was like the most I have ever felt like a spy in my entire life, which is sad because it's googly eyes on a shoe. Um, but it's that sort of thing that I feel what I will say is it gave me a reputation. And luckily, because animation as an industry is entirely full of nerds, uh, that reputation wasn't a bad one. Uh, I think that's how I'd sum that up. It's
Yeah.
because I'm not, I can't for the life of me take things seriously sometimes.
Yeah. Also, in Christie's defense, Christie's pranks were always good natured, and they came at a time when
Oh,
all of us were absolutely stressed out of our minds. So it was,
yeah. My pranking rule is always if the person being pranked isn't having fun, then it's a bad prank.
yeah.
That's it. So everything I did with the air of aiming to confuse rather than harm.
Hmm.
So you come into work and your desk is covered in googly eyes, you're just going to be bewildered. And that is exactly what I was looking for.
Hmm.
So because it was a high stress moment in that production, I think a lot of people looked at that and found comedic relief in it, which we all fairly desperately needed, I
Yeah.
think.
Because how many weeks of overtime did we do? Of 60-hour work weeks did we do?
Too many.
A
Like
lot. Like,
it would be 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Like
yeah.
it
And
just kept
1
happening.
week off was 48 hours, not 40.
Right.
That was the
Yeah.
extra thing.
So it was still overtime. It was just not 60 hours overtime. And
It was a lot. Yeah.
it was a lot.
Like, as
So
much as
yeah,
I
I
loved
think
that production, for sure. I
I
don't think it was easy on any of us.
oh no, absolutely not. Even the veteran animators were struggling by the end of that.
Yeah.
And I think we were doing between 2.5
Sorry, you
months
cut out again. 1 second. Sorry, you said 2.5.
months of
Yeah.
that on and off kind of yo-yoing back and forth between them. It was
Yeah.
unsustainable.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, that was the basement for us.
Yeah.
And was there an animation technique that you learned? Well, I guess we talked reference, but were there any other cases of animation techniques that changed your animation style in the long run?
Uh
Like, any cool?
and now I'm literally pausing right now because my mind is going, how do I animate? Uh
You
which
started
is a
thinking
little
about
bit
it.
ridiculous. Um so this is a super basic thing that I really wish I had picked up on much sooner is just breaking the rig. Like I feel like I spent a lot of my career going like, oh, but that's the scale of this and I probably shouldn't translate because spines don't translate. And I really wish I could go back and just grab me by the face and say, everybody is doing this, and that's why their posing is better than yours. Like,
That's a really interesting point. It's not something that you'd actively think about unless you've
yeah.
had that better.
And
And you don't think about smears. You don't think about, like,
yeah, and
if it looks different.
it was something that I was really concerned with was trying like they've built me this skeleton and it is a skeleton of bones and bones are not movable and kind of when I made that realization it was like they're not bones. This is geometry. They're
Mhm.
shapes. They're shapes on a screen, and I control these shapes. And since then, it's just been a night and day difference with what I've been able to do, and it feels so basic.
Mhm.
It feels like such a tiny thing, but
Yeah. Well, as someone who is actually constrained by how skeletons move now, like
Yes.
I get like I don't get that anymore, so it's definitely something you have to remember to do again for sure. So
Yeah,
like it
definitely.
definitely, but if you're doing stylized stuff, 100% like break the ring. Can I ask,
Yeah.
was
I
what
feel like
production
that's
was
one of the big. Sorry, go
no,
ahead.
no, no. I was just gonna ask, like, what production did you click on that for? Was that like Life in the Dream House or earlier or later?
uh I legitimately don't remember.
Fair enough. I just know like Life in the Dream House always had those really hilariously stylized poses. So I wasn't. It was curious because I don't think I've been through your entire list of stuff that you've done lately. But
I mean, it's a lot. I I looked back a little while ago at my resume and went, "Oh, I'm gonna have to trim out some of these things that I worked on because it's getting unwieldy."
hmm
It just it's a bullet point list that goes on and essentially tells you nothing because it's just too many titles.
fair enough.
Um, which, yeah, at some point, it's like, look, I've been working for 10 years. There's going to be a lot here.
hmm and what's another question I should ask you? Do you have a favorite thing to animate?
Uh, are we
Just
talking
I don't know.
a favorite?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't care. What's your favorite thing that you've animated? I guess in general.
Well, in general, my favorite stuff has always been the more cartoony stuff. A lot of my career has been very realism based sort of stuff where you're trying to get nice, nuanced motions and small little differences in order to make the character really feel lifelike. But there's something really fun about being able to stretch and literally just turn the character into a rubber ball and just go nuts on the squash and stretch and
hmm
say, you know what? This is a smear frame, and the arm is now 4 times longer than it usually is. Why? Because I want to. That's why. And it's refreshing to be able to play
hmm
like that. Like, I feel like there's a lot to be learned from realistic motion, and I do enjoy doing realistic motion, but it's refreshing to be able to just play with something
Yeah.
and get some really nonsense stuff where you get to pause on a smear frame and just go, yeah, that's awful.
hmm
Perfect.
Smears are smears are so cool.
Yeah.
Um, oh, what's another good question for you? Also, I'm just gonna say because I screwed up so royally with the sound, it's cool if we go over 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah. Yeah.
anything going on afterwards? Perfect.
Nope.
So that gives me a bit of time. Perfect. Um, so where'd the one go? Sorry, there was one that I was really interested in asking you, and it's are there any okay, here's one. I know we talked about Mike Chafe a lot, but are there any other peers, or if you want to like build on Mike more or anything, like is there any peers that you have worked with that you really look up to and admire? Um,
Uh, this
particular
is this is going to be a really non-answer answer, but pretty much every single one of them. In that same sort of imposter syndrome thing, um, I can look at all of my coworkers and all of the leads that I've had and see things in their animation that I always think I never would have thought of that. That's so like that's such an inspired thing to do. That's such a genius bit of acting. That's a great little motion there. And I'm able to just really appreciate other people's choices in a way that uh how can I word it? It's like this may not get the idea across, but what I always think is, oh, I'm really bad at this. I've got to get good. And that fires me up a little bit.
hmm
And it's not this kind of self pitying, like, oh, I'm really not good. It's like, no, I'm not good. I need to get better. I'm going to pick apart what this person does and like scrub through everything. And um,
it's seeing their work gives you drive to improve.
yeah, absolutely. So, in
It's
a
such a
way,
satisfying feeling.
And that happens a lot to a lot of different people that I've worked with, where I can just draw from what they're doing. And I could give you a huge list of names, but it's going to be a huge list of names
Yeah.
because each one of those people has brought something new to the table
Yeah.
that I've been able to steal, essentially.
Oh, I like it. No, it's true. Like everyone, and like each person has their own like distinct way of animating, and they've got their one thing that they're like really, really, really good at, and
Yeah,
it's really
and
cool seeing what they can do.
the more that you can look at, okay, you've got this thing that you're really, really good at, the more you can look at what that thing is and pick it apart and understand why it's working really, really good. That gives you an understanding that you can then incorporate into your own work.
Yeah.
So steal it.
There you go. Oh, where's another one? Sorry, I got so into hearing that I should have like had a question ready.
No,
Oh yeah,
it's all good.
yeah. So, um, out of curiosity now, like, cause you've moved to Montreal, and I know a lot of things have changed. Has your schedule changed at all? Like, what's a schedule for you? Is it? It's. I'm hoping less overtime.
Uh, yes, less overtime. And part of that is because I'm not teaching anymore. I think when I was in Toronto, I was both working at a studio and teaching 1 day a week, and then I would go home and either mark assignments or answer emails, and it felt like I was always doing something. And certainly now that I'm out here, being able to just animate without also thinking about the emails and also thinking about all the assignments has been a dramatic change in schedule that I think has been good for me.
Yeah.
Um, but the other interesting thing about working here working at Real Effects compared to other studios that I've been at, most studios have said, okay, we are now doing overtime. It will last for this amount of time. We expect you to hit this many hours per week. And that's it. You go from there.
Hmm.
Here, they say overtime is now open. You can work as many additional hours as you like. Just let us know ahead of time. Um, we will order dinner for you if you stay past 7. And and there's no real pressure to do those 60-hour weeks. So it made it a lot easier in terms of, oh, well, maybe this week I'll do 2 extra hours a day, and cool, I'll get a little bit ahead on things,
Hmm.
which was really refreshing to be able to kind of make my own overtime schedule in a way that didn't lead towards more burnout.
Yeah.
Because, like Troll Hunters, it was easy to go, oh, more 60 hours.
Yeah.
Yay.
Did you ever like reach a burnout moment on Troll Hunters or any other production?
Uh,
Like for an example of like my own.
yes.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm hesitating is that um, I believe I started teaching in when we were doing Troll Hunters, and that made things much, much more difficult because now I need to make 60 hours
On
while
top.
also teaching 1 day a week in the middle of the week.
Hmm.
And then going home after being at the studio for 13 hours and trying to answer emails. And
Hmm.
it wasn't great. Uh, but I managed to keep my head afloat for longer than I probably should have, in a word. So when I was working on Next Gen, I was still teaching, still doing the answering emails and getting behind on marking assignments, and
Christie.
generally feeling neck deep in it. And then when overtime started on that, I kind of went, I can't do this anymore. I'm dying. I am actually feeling my body die all around me. So I had to cut that project short, and I'm still sad that I had to cut that project short. I wish I'd been able to stick with it to the end, but there was some significant burnout happening that I had just been ignoring for a long time. And so I stopped working at the studio in November and continued teaching through until April. And then I did literally nothing until September when I moved out here. So it took a long time to recover from a burnout that had been building up for probably about a year.
Because before you
Um,
started at Tangent, you had been at Snowball as well, which was all on
right.
top of teaching as a lead of all things.
Yeah. So that one was a lot. And it was
Yeah.
that project that I'm going, I think I'm burning out. I need to stop doing this, and managed to delude myself into thinking that it would be fine if I wasn't a lead at this other project.
Mm-hmm.
So I left Snowball and I started working at Tangent doing Next Gen, and deluded myself quite successfully for a while longer before reality came crashing in and I went, no, this isn't better, it's just different.
Let this
I
be a warning to all you people watching. Like,
Yeah. The most important thing that I took from that is knowing that you need time when you're not working. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a different task. It doesn't matter. Like, for me, I was like, oh, well, it's different because I'm not animating when I get home. I'm looking at other people's animations. I'm giving feedback. It's
that's still
not,
animation.
it's not different because your brain is still focused and it's working. Your brain is working hard on these things. And because I didn't have any time for leisure, I didn't have any time to just sit down and binge Netflix. I didn't have time to sit down and like waste a day on video games. I wasn't getting any energy back. I
Mm-hmm.
was just spending it and spending it and spending it. And it's unsustainable. You can't do that forever.
Yeah, it's a very good explanation. And yeah, please take that to heart, people who are watching. Like, when you start to feel stuff, like, take care of
Please. Yeah.
yourself.
Take care of yourself because ultimately it will make your work worse if you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I look back on is that there are some shots in Next Gen where I'm going, if I had been coming at this refreshed and ready to do it, I think I could have done a much better job on it.
Yeah.
The work isn't bad, but I know it's not living up to what I could do.
Mm-hmm.
So don't feel like you have to work through burnout because you're a professional and that's what professionals do. Take care of yourself. Everything is tied to how you treat yourself. And if you're burnt out and you're exhausted, it's going to show in your work.
That's very well said. Actually, building on that question, now that you've actually got some time, because you said you need to focus on your own things, what do you do in your spare time? Like, to entertain yourself, to like take it easy?
I binge Netflix and I
Yeah.
spend a day playing video games, and I've got 2 dogs, so I'll take the dogs to the park and go outside when it's not literally hailing like it has been for the past 2 days. Thank you, Montreal.
Hey, nah, Toronto
Um,
is exactly the same right now.
yeah, and there's some days where I just don't do anything. I just loaf around and, putter away online, and even that is enough relaxation of not engaging my brain in a strenuous thing that it helps.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lot, but it's enough. And I spend more time connecting with my family. Obviously, there's a huge distance, but I chat with them all the time. I chat with my friends all the time. I feel more connected out here than I did when I was in Toronto because now I have the time to invest in that kind of stuff,
That sounds
which
really nice.
it's a weird thing when you realize that it's not about distance, it's about time.
Mm-hmm. That's very well put.
I've had a lot of time to think about it.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I'm glad you finally have the time to think about it.
Yeah,
It's good to see that you are doing better. I am happy to hear that a bunch of you guys over in Montreal are just enjoying your time there. It's good.
definitely.
Um, oh yeah. What's the other one I wanted to do? So yeah, do you do any personal work? I know we kind of touched on. Do you just avoid like doing any personal like animation right now because you've done so much animation at work? Do you try to keep that
Uh,
separate nowadays or?
right now, yes,
Hmm.
it is one of the things that I would like to start doing now that I have time, but I'm still a little gun shy about the burnout.
Yeah.
And so I'll look at an animation program and my brain will go, no, no more work. No, 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 we're not doing that. And I go, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm listening to you this time. Please don't be mad. Um, but I have a couple of other things that I'm doing that aren't animation related. So I've been doing a lot more drawing.
Yay.
I've been uh, I've been putting together a a few different pitches for things that I'm not quite ready to talk about at this point, but I'm doing a lot of world building, which is
Mm.
always really engaging to me.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things that I'm still putting creativity towards and building things that are just a half step outside of animation.
Mhm.
And even that, I feel like that's engaging myself in a way that I can bring those ideas back to my work. So even though it's not strictly animation, I'm still getting, it's going to be weird to say, I'm still getting animation out of it,
That's fair.
if that makes any
No,
sense.
it
So,
definitely
like
does.
when I'm drawing, I'm still thinking about posing and silhouette and all the things that make a good
Yeah.
animation, but it's not
It's
strictly animation.
yeah, it's a creative outlet and you're learning something just in a different
Right.
sort of yeah. Um, yeah, I think a lot of the things that I would be asking, like it's stuff you've really already answered. Um,
I'm good like that.
yeah, no, no, I appreciate it. But I'm just trying to see. Actually, I heard your studio has a D&D campaign. Are you part of it or no?
Uh, Not currently. From what I understand, the campaign has been kind of a one off
Oh.
sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, However, currently I'm on my own out here in Montreal, which means that if anybody's doing something after work, it becomes a big deal to try to get to because I've got dogs that need to go out on a fairly regular basis.
Mhm.
So while for a lot of people it's not a big deal to say, oh, hey, the work day's done, let's go over to the other room and play a game, I'm going, if I don't go home right now, I might have to clean pee out of my carpet. So
Fair.
goodbye.
Yeah.
So hopefully once we get some living situation stuff sorted out and my fiance comes over here,
Oh, is he
I'll
still in
be able to
Toronto?
engage a little bit more.
Are you still like is he still just in Toronto right now?
Yeah, Julian's
Oh,
still
okay.
in Toronto.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What was the other thing? Okay, so we are kind of getting close to where we could possibly wrap up. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat now. I've got a couple more questions for Christy that I can ask, and if there's a couple less than serious questions that I'm total. If you're totally okay with me asking them, I will ask them.
Absolutely.
But okay, we'll do those first, and then I'll ask the final questions to kind of wrap up, and then we'll do a little more Q&A if that works.
Sure.
First one is ask her how she feels about Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Who asked that?
Phil J. King 86.
So Phil is someone who has been present while I have watched Roger Rabbit, and I literally talk through the entire movie because I am gushing about it. They did so much stuff in there, and I mean the movie's what, like 112 minutes? It's over an hour and I will not shut up the entire time.
Okay, so watch it
So
alone first.
unfortunately, this interview is not long enough to go over
Oh
all the
no.
ways that I adore Roger
Oh
Rabbit.
no. Maybe we'll
So
do
I'll
like
leave it at that.
we'll do like another one where I just put you in front of Who Framed Roger Rabbit and you just talk through it like a Christie commentary. It'll be awesome. I
I
will totally
will
sit down and watch
absolutely
it.
do that. Absolutely.
That is, yeah, I want to see that. And then ask her about Riker's head.
Okay, so related to me being four raccoons in a trench coat, I am a self-proclaimed garbage monster. So one day when I saw a mannequin head at a secondhand store, I went, yes! And I grabbed it immediately. And the cashier gave me some weird looks, and I just said, yes, I am buying this mannequin head. No, I don't have a reason for why I'm doing this. It just called to me. So the head looks like it used to belong to a hairdresser in training
Mhm.
because it's actual hair and he has a scruff of a beard that's not quite a beard and is actually a little bit wretched, but it looks like vaguely like William T. Riker from the Starship Enterprise
Next generation.
on Next Generation. And so I have taken to calling him the severed head of Riker. The severed head of Riker came with me to Tangent. I just brought him in so that I had somewhere to put my hat. But people rallied around him.
Oh no.
And after some time had passed, he was put up on a pole where he was above all of our desks, just watching with his blank, painted, soulless eyes. Um, Riker is more than a severed head. He is a legend.
Is he still at Tangent?
No, I took him home with me.
Okay.
He is currently hiding somewhere in the apartment as to not disturb visitors. And he may or may not make his way over to Real Effects. There's a lot of desk swapping going on right now. So once I find my permanent desk, maybe I'll bring him in at that point. Um, we'll see.
Oh god, you always have good stories.
And that's what sets me apart from other animators is
It
that I
is.
bring in severed
No,
heads.
you're also just a really good storyteller, and I appreciate that. Da da da, and yeah, I'm assuming that's your superpower. What are so here's a couple. Are there? I know we talked burnout. Are there any life lessons you would pass down to a younger version of yourself,
uh,
or did we cover those?
don't panic so much, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. You're good. You'll figure it out, and no one's going to be mad at you for not knowing it already.
Okay.
Like, life is a learning process. You're always going to be learning new things. And with that in mind, don't be afraid of the things that you don't know because you'll get there. And other people are going to be learning from you in the same way that you're going to be learning from other people. And as long as you're open to that exchange and kind of letting yourself look a little bit dumb sometimes, chances are you're not going to look dumb. That's just what your brain is telling you. I would say to my younger self. That may not be applicable
No,
to everybody, but
that's a really good that's a good lesson.
yeah.
The next one I want to ask is there any advice that you would give to people trying to break into the industry? What kind of stuff should they have in their portfolio as a teacher, as a professional? What kind of
Okay.
best way to get feedback on their work, like stuff like that?
So the first thing that I would say that's completely unrelated to portfolio stuff is that workshopping, or not workshopping, sorry, networking, that's the one. Networking is not going out and giving people elevator pitches about who you are and what you want and any of that stuff. It's about talking to people and making human connections with people. And if you're able to do that, then those human connections will then say, oh, I met this person at such and such a place. And over the natural course of conversation, I found out XYZ about them. And from there, you've made a personal connection with someone in the industry. And I can almost guarantee you that for me personally, if someone comes up to me and says, hi, I'm John Smith and I just graduated and I'm looking for a role in animation, I would say, good, that's good.
Yeah.
And that would be it. I would like, where do you go from there? Whereas if someone says, hi, I'm John Smith, I just graduated, what, like, do you have any advice? Do you like what, like, tell me something about you? Like, that starts a conversation that eventually I can then kind of reciprocate and ask, okay, so what do you want to do? Let me engage with what you're saying in a much more meaningful way. As far as portfolio stuff goes, I mean, same basic rules apply as are out there anywhere. Keep it short, keep it to your best stuff, even if that's only 30 seconds of stuff, fine. Like, don't put in work that you feel like you're adding it just to fill it out, because that's going to make your stuff look weaker overall.
Sorry, you're lagging a bit, but yeah, that's going to make your stuff look weaker overall. I'm not sure if it's sorry, it's just cutting out on the call, but I could parse it. So yeah, no, those are really good points. It's like filler for demo reels. It's like filler episodes of a TV show. They're just don't.
Yeah, you don't need it. Everyone knows that it's going to end up being filler, and it makes it. Yeah, it just makes it weaker overall.
It definitely will show if it is filler.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we've talked a lot about Reel because I guess you've worked at Reel and Snowball and Arc. Those are the three studios you've been with.
I also worked at Toonbox for a little while between different stages of Arc. Okay, Arc. Yeah, so I don't know if my finger counting did the right thing, but I want to say 6. It might be 5. Okay, there was Arc, and then Toonbox, and then back to Arc, and then Arc died, and I went to Snowball, and then Tangent, and then Real Effects. Okay, so 5 different studios.
Okay, and then I'm just trying to see. Just because you've worked at so many more studios, are there any particular qualities about what you did? I guess for Reel, we'll talk Reel because Reel exists and Arc doesn't. What were I'm not bitter.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, I mean, at the same time, Arc was like, what was it? Do you know what kind of things it was as a junior animator trying to get into Arc as your first job? What was it that you felt helped you get in as like a brand new animator?
This is another one of those times where I got really lucky. So Seneca has had, I think they're still running it. It's essentially an internship program where you sign up for it, and the neat thing is that it's sponsored by the government. So you're getting paid via the government, which means the studio isn't paying for you, which means it's free labor for them. So what Arc had done was they had participated in this in order to do a short film. So they brought on 7 students, between 7 and 10. I'd have to count, and that's not that important, to work on a short film, which ended up being Ormy, which is about a pig trying to get cookies, and it is fantastic, and it will never leave my demo reel because it's one of those really fun, squashy, stretchy, sort of cartoony things that are so rare to work on. But the reason that I got lucky was not just because I got into this internship program. It was very highly contested,
Mhm.
but that when that wrapped up, ARC was hiring.
Oh.
So I was able to essentially slide directly across, like, okay, you're here. We know you can animate well. We have already trained you in our pipeline. How about a job? And I went, yes,
Oh,
yes, please.
that's
And that was
nice.
it. Now, the reason that I say that it was luck is that the group that uh, did the exact same thing next year, so they joined in, did a short film. ARC wasn't hiring at that point. So it was essentially a like, well, it was nice working with you. Keep in touch. Bye.
So
Um,
yeah, that really is crazy luck.
yeah. So
So much of it is luck when you think
that's
about it.
another. It is, but that's kind of why I want to say I was in the right position to take advantage of it because if I hadn't have worked hard, if I hadn't have really applied myself and asked the questions and made a presence for myself, then that wouldn't have been offered to me.
Mm.
And uh, there were a few people who didn't get that offer out of Ormy because, well, for various reasons, but
Mhm.
um, that's essentially what I mean by being able to take advantage of luck.
Mhm.
It might happen, it might not, but if you're not in the right place, then you might as well just not have that luck to begin with.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Um, okay, so I think that's all of the things that I have to ask you. So thank you very much, Christy. But if there is anyone else in chat that actually does have a question, we can take some now. Actually, there is one more story I would like you to tell, and that is the one that you did at Tangent to Mike after the Emmys.
Ah, yes. So, as Sedona mentioned, Mike won an Emmy. And the reason that was so hilarious to most of us is because he is someone who values the work for the work. So when he won this and he was then expected to go to an event in a suit and tie and
Oh
shake hands, he was upset because it was useless pageantry. And we're all going, like, yeah, we get a video of you walking across stage to accept this award that you don't want. It was hysterical. So I started working at Tangent, and Mike was working at Tangent, and they had this really nice desk set up where there were like big cubicles where 7 different people were working in a pod.
Mhm.
And so you'd have your pod and the next door pod and so on and so forth. And Mike was in the neighboring pod. And it wasn't that long before I got an idea, which was to order, I think it was 2 dozen small plastic trophies. And I put all of them in the filing cabinet next to my desk. And every single morning, I would write something on the trophy like um, best reference, and I would put it on his desk before he came in. Uh, and at first, when I went to check in, he'd just kind of put it off to one side, and I'd check in every couple of days, to every single morning I'd put a new one in, but I'd just kind of come in and say, "Oh, Mike, how's it going? Oh, yeah, you're building up some trophies there, huh? Like, that's fun. Oh, look at this one. Best hair," which is funny because he's mostly bald. Um, and best most and most repressed rage. And I just kept going. Every single day was a new trophy on his desk. Um, and I don't know how, but he didn't know who was doing it. And the reason I say that I don't know how he didn't know was that um, while I was pranking this one coworker at ARC, relentlessly, Mike was right there. He should have noticed. He should have noticed all the things that I was doing to this poor man. And somehow he didn't. So these trophies were appearing, and I would sit in the morning and listen to him in the next cube going, I don't know who's doing this. I think I'm going to set up a camera. And I'm going, yes, set up a camera, Mike. Set up a. I've already thought of 3 different ways to thwart a camera system, Mike. So 5 days a week, times approximately 30 trophies, because I did supplement these little plastic trophies with some bigger plastic trophies that I would dole out on special occasions. This meant that I was putting trophies on his desk for about a month and a half straight. Now, I was teaching at the time, and it took a week or 2 before I went, someone has to put a trophy on his desk while I'm teaching because I'm not in the studio. Because I was so worried that he would realize, hey, every Wednesday I'm not getting a trophy, and every Wednesday Christie isn't here. And I was worried he was going to put the pieces together. He didn't. And it wasn't until I ran out of trophies that I went, I can't keep doing this. I'm out of ideas for things to write on these trophies, and he still doesn't know who's done it. So instead of letting the story come out in a way that I couldn't control, like somebody telling him I had injured myself doing reference,
I'm sorry.
I decided to make a cake. And I made a very large trophy-shaped cake, which I then got in contact with our coordinator and said, hey, can you, have an animator meeting where I'm going to bring in cake and do a massive reveal on this thing. So I'm on the whoops, sorry, I've been using my computer as light, and it just went to sleep. So I came in on the subway with this giant cake. Like, I made my own mold for it, and a whole bunch of cupcakes and everything. And you know how bad the TTC is, and I'm on the TTC with like baked goods forever. I managed to make my way in and hide them before anyone notices. And the meeting finally comes up, and I come out with this cake, and I go, "It was me!" And Mike goes, "Oh." And that was it. That was the whole reaction. I'm like, okay, well, here's some cake. Have fun, I guess. But apparently, I had a chat with him later. Apparently, he'd been telling his wife about them, and she thought it was hysterical. And the timing was actually pretty good because he hadn't announced it yet, but he was leaving Tangent shortly. And if I hadn't known that, there was a very good chance that I never would have been able to tell him, and it would have been a mystery forever. But he had to bring home the trophies in 2 trips because there were so many of them.
Oh, you're terrible.
It was great. It was great. And that's one of those pranks where nothing bad happened. It was just confusing.
Yeah.
And that's all you want.
Mm-hmm.
Make a good story for later.
It's a very good story, and I appreciate it. We have one question in chat, and that is Labor Geek asking, what was your favorite shot from Barbie, Life in the Dream House?
Oh, boy.
You also have a compliment. Okay. You also have a compliment, I gotta say, from the Mighty Kai Monster. They say Christie makes the best faces.
Thank you, Mighty Kai Monster. Sorry, okay, my favorite shot on Life in the Dream House has to be it. Okay, so there was a set of like 3 shorts that kind of went back to back, and I don't remember the name of it, but essentially the premise was that it was Barbie Sisters Day. So every year they would get together and Barbie would clear her schedule and spend dedicated time with her sisters. Unfortunately, in this case, she had double booked with a band called Fifth Harmony, which is an actual band apparently. Anyway, so she was like, "Yeah, I'll help you with your music video," and then went, "Oh no, I also need to spend time with my sisters," and it became this balancing act between her starting to spend time with them and then getting a call from Fifth Harmony and going, "Oh yeah, I'm on my way. Sorry, I've got to go," and running off. And that premise is important for me to explain because in my favorite shot, what is happening is that she is hang gliding with Stacy. And then she kind of goes, "Oh, I've got to go. I'll be right back." And she drops off of screen with this bungee cord, essentially. And the shot is Stacy going, "I wish Barbie was here." And then Ken zooms into place on this bungee cord out of nowhere, grabs the thing, he goes, "Hey, Stace, how's it going?" And he's leaning in and being like super, super in her face. And she's just like, "Where did you come from? What's going on? What, what is happening?" And just as he's kind of getting into this, they fly into a whole bunch of seagulls, which then just crowd around his face and are flapping, and he's hollering. And then it goes to this super long shot where they're about this big on the screen, and all you can see is the silhouette of a hang glider, a flurry of motion, and hear "ah" from the background. And it's just this wonderfully cheesy moment with several back to back gags that work really well together. And that was one of those things that we were just allowed to play with. So, like, I got to decide what these seagulls were going to do to him. I got to decide how he got into the shot. I got to decide how Stacy reacted to him suddenly appearing in the shot when it had been Barbie just a minute before. And all of those things were just so much fun to play with. And yeah, it's a fun shot. I still look back at it and laugh a little bit because it's ridiculous.
I really want to find that one now. I'm also really sad that that wasn't in your demo reel, but
It
I
was
understand.
in a previous iteration
Fair
of a
enough.
demo
There was,
reel.
yeah, Troll Hunters probably just shoved a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Troll Hunters took over.
And then, do you have a favorite convention-related art and animation moment? Also, I don't know which game you're talking about on Amazon Libra Geek. If you're talking Life in the Dream House, it's not a game. It is a TV series or web
Oh,
series.
there was a game
What?
based off of it, but it was a webisode series
Yeah,
that I worked
yeah. Find the series
on.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as an editor, so I guess it'll have to be an art related moment.
fair enough.
And to a convention in the States, mostly to visit some American friends that kind of all congregate in one place for a weekend. So nice and convenient. I can see everybody at once. But at that convention, there is a panel, which is an after hours art panel. And that should tell you a lot about what is drawn at said panel, in that it's after hours and they look at IDs at the door. It gets R rated in a hurry. Now, what I most like about this particular thing is that I have been doing this panel ever since I started going to this convention. And you see the same faces in the crowd year after year. And there's a normal routine of everybody comes in, they sit down, four of us are up at the front at a table, and a microphone is passed down and saying, "Okay, introduce yourself." So one says, "Hi, I'm John. I've worked in these industries. This is some of the work you might know. You can find me at this art table or at this website," and so on and so forth. But I've become a bit of a stereotype at that convention because it's in Oklahoma. So the fact that I come all the way from Canada is unusual. And so at that convention, I tend to respond to Canada. People will say it, and I will know that they're talking to me and I'm being addressed, and I need to answer to that. So during these introductions, the microphone is being passed down, and people are politely applauding because they're just wanting to get to the drawing part. And there was one year where I just took the microphone and I went, I don't want to introduce myself. I just want to draw. So I take it and I just say, and I'm from Canada. And the room explodes into cheers. And I kind of go, okay, good enough. Here, take the microphone. I'm done. That's all I needed to say to make the crowd happy, I guess. And that has always stuck in my mind as this bewildering moment of, oh, that's all you want. Okay, well then let's get on with it.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Christy, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you
it
for
was a lot of
everyone.
fun.
Thank you for everyone who came in. And I know that I'm really sorry I'm saying this pun, but I'm sorry we went a little off tangent with the stories. But honestly,
Wah,
like,
wah.
yeah, no, like I just wanted people to kind of be introduced to the Christy that I know and like got to spend months in a basement with, because yeah, she's a good person. And like, I don't know, like those oh, shut up. And again, a lot of the industry experiences, like my best experiences are always with people, not necessarily work I've done. It's the time you're spending with people and those people that help you throughout like everything that you go through. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Christy, and thanks for everyone that stopped in. We will see you next week for, I believe, just a regularly scheduled panel. And yeah, thank you again, and we'll see you on Sunday. And now I figure out how to stop this program again, and I just minimized it.
You can do it. I
Great.
believe in you.
Thanks so much. Bye.